Before we go ahead and explore the more advanced techniques in organ playing, let's go back to the basics. We have come a long way in a short time in these lessons. What I'd like you to do is to review with me how we divide the voices in a hymn, which has 4 parts. We have the soprano, alto, tenor, and bass, and we remember that a hymn is actually not piano music, not organ music, but it's choral music. And when you take it to the organ, you interpret that and arrange it just at sight to the instrument. We have talked about playing one voice only in the left hand, the tenor voice, and the soprano and alto voice in the right hand. But if I'm going to solo out the soprano melody, I must take the alto and tenor voices in the left hand. This is a different combination than you might normally expect when you play the hymn all on one manual. Here we have a beautiful solo voice in this organ on the solo manual. And I'm going to play the melody there, and I will play then the alto and the tenor voice in the left hand on an accompaniment manual, with the pedal, of course, still playing the bass line. Don't expect all this to happen all at once. You will need practice. As I mentioned, it could be 9 hours or 9 months to really become comfortable with this. My advice in all cases is to practice often, every day. In our basic approach to hymns, we've learned about articulation with how we can vary it. We've learned about elastic tempo. Now we're going to get into one of the more advanced areas of playing the organ and playing hymns on the organ, and that is the area of reharmonization. The harmonies that are provided to us in most hymnals are basic, and that's for a very good reason, because the people who publish hymnals want them to be easily used and enjoyed by the widest number of people, and therefore they're a little simpler than they might normally be. We have the prevalence of tonic, subdominant, and dominant harmonies. Without getting too theoretical, I can tell you that in many hymnals you don't have compound harmonies that are certainly familiar to all of our ears in our musical culture around us, but we just don't have the sevenths, ninths, and flatted fifths and all these other kinds of compound harmonies. That doesn't mean that they can't be fashioned into the hymn. And when you fashion these compound harmonies and other types of reharmonizations into a hymn, they can be coordinated if the organist is sensitive to express the drama and the progression of what happens in the texts. You know, texts in hymnals are often very deep subjects, pretty heavy. Sin, redemption, salvation. These are very emotional, and they can be made a wonderful singing experience as well if the organist wants to vary them in some way. Now we're going to see more of that in the next lessons, but for now I'd like to say that reharmonization doesn't have to mean you're going to change out all these types of harmonies and make a huge change. The changes can be subtle. Your singers might appreciate what I'm going to suggest here. This is our tune, Ellers. We had it a few lessons ago. You'll notice that each of the 4 phrases ends in a whole note. And there's another phrase that begins on a downbeat right after it. You know, your singers are going to probably wonder, well, when should I stop singing that note? When should I take a breath? And of course, if the organ is sustained through that, Or even worse than that, if the organist is going to make a huge break, it might make for just a moment where the singers are a bit uncomfortable without any accompaniment. There is a way to use moderate reharmonization here to make the experience more fluid and enjoyable for a singer. Let's listen to the first two phrases here of this hymn, played without any embellishment, as the hymnal would have it. And so forth. Now, at the end of the first phrase, we are in the tonic. That's the tonic harmony. The tonic harmony repeats at the beginning of the second phrase. But what I'd like to suggest is we take the F minor harmony, the sixth scale degree minor chord, and move it earlier. And in order to get there, we'll make a transitory or passing harmony in the end of the first phrase. And then again, we can do the same thing here by adding another embellished dominant on the end of the second phrase. Listen to the difference. So you see, you can use reharmonization in a very small way to make what can be a very appreciated enhancement to your hymn playing. Now, if you're going to be reharmonizing hymns, and let's say you are a substitute, you don't know the congregation or the choir, you may want to consult with the choir at rehearsal. Let them know what you intend to do. If the choir is singing from the hymnal in 4 parts, and you're playing something very different, they're not going to appreciate that, and they'll be very confused too. So be sure to check it out with the choir in advance. The best recommendation is, if you are going to reharmonize, let's say stanza 3, that you tell the choir, oh yes, on stanza 3, I'm not going to be playing what's in the hymnal. The solution is to advise them to please sing in unison on that stanza.